Great, so welcome everyone, and thank you for joining this Mindfulness UK session. As we move towards the end of the week, the phrase TGI Friday, thank God it's Friday, comes to mind. And that's going to be the theme of today, TGI Friday and out at the movies. But just before we dive into that, and in the normal way, I'd like to start just with a short practice to land fully in the moment after a busy week and ahead of a no doubt active weekend. I'll then do a slightly longer practice, and then we can finish with a group sharing session. The comments that I make will be recorded, but we'll turn the recording off for the group sharing because that's confidential. So, end of a busy week, so maybe let's just take a moment to give our bodies and our minds a moment to unwind, and just to use the breath to release any tension and land fully in this moment. Start by sitting comfortably, maybe just resting your hands on top of your legs or in your lap, whatever's comfortable to you. And in a moment, I'm going to invite you just to take 3 deep breaths in and stretch in whatever way is comfortable for you. It can be stretch of your arms up above your head, or if you're in an office surrounded by colleagues or a public place in a cafe, you could just scrunch your shoulders up to the base of your neck. But just something that you reach upwards with some part of your body as you breathe in, and then as you breathe out slowly, just a long, nice relax. Okay, so if you're ready, let's give it a try. So maybe a long, slow in-breath while stretching. And a long, slow out-breath as we release any tension and just settle back into our bodies and our minds. And then another one. And then another last one. And then just allow our breath to fall back into its natural rhythm. Now, if you can just settle into that comfortable position, ideally you're looking for your knees to be at the same level as your hips or slightly lower, so that your back is comfortably straight and you can be alert but relaxed. And you may wish to close your eyes or just lower your gaze, whichever's comfortable for you. And see if you can bring your attention and your focus to the breath as it passes in and out of your body in its natural rhythm. And just allow that attention to follow the breath as it enters the nose, passes down your throat, fills your chest and belly, and then flows back out again. A continuous circle of arising and passing. And if you don't feel comfortable focusing on the breath, that's absolutely fine. Feel free to choose any anchor point for your focus that you feel comfortable with. It might be your breath, it might be feeling your feet in contact with the floor under you, or your bottom on the chair, supporting and holding you. Or you might like to put your hand on your chest or belly and just feel the soft rise and fall as your body breathes. consciously being aware of what's happening in the present moment in a non-judging and kind way. This is the practice. We're not thinking about the future. We're not reliving or reminiscing about the past. We're just being present and allowing it to be exactly as it is. What's actually happening right here, right now. As a reminder of what mindfulness is, James Barraz says, mindfulness is simply being aware of what is happening right now without wishing it were different. Enjoying the pleasant without holding on when it changes, which it will. Being with the unpleasant without fearing it will always be this way, which it won't. So allow this focus point of your breath or your body to become your anchor to the present moment, to what's actually happening right here, right now. It's always here, a place of calm and refuge from the incessant chatter of the busy mind and the busyness of life around you, and all the stress that that chatter can entail. And if at any point you realize you got pulled away into thoughts or emotions, just giving a little inner smile and gently bringing your attention back to the anchor with a kind and non-judging attitude. Remember that this moment of realizing and returning to the here and now, this waking up out of the imaginary world of our thoughts, this is the practice, to just keep coming back to the present and allowing it to be. And coming back again. And again. And if you've moved off into the same thoughts or some new ones, it's entirely normal. There's no need to go off into other thoughts, judging yourself or getting frustrated. Just giving that inner smile that you noticed it. That's the practice. And returning. And as we come to the end of this landing practice, see if you can keep your attention on your anchor as the inevitable thoughts of what is next start to arise. It's so easy to start getting pulled off into the future. Just a few more moments on the anchor. And now, in your own time, just invite you to gently open your eyes when you're ready. Have a little stretch as we come back together. Okay, so just have a very brief pause if anyone wants a sip of water or just to move around or get comfortable. And just while I'm doing so, I'm going to tell a little story because I like stories. Once upon a time, a boy said to his mother, "Mum, imagine you're on an open plain in Africa with nowhere to hide and you're surrounded by a pack of fierce, hungry lions. What would you do?" And the mother racks her brain for a clever way to get out of the situation. And finally she says, "I give up. What should I do?" And her son says, "Stop imagining." And that's a good intro for today's session. It's Friday. It's TGI Friday. Thank God it's Friday. The end of the working week, and the weekend looms with all its plans. You may be excitedly looking forward to a date or dinner, seeing some friends or having time with the family, maybe going to the gym or taking your dogs for a walk, or maybe just a quiet night chilling out in front of the TV. Or there could be some nervousness and apprehension about something you have to do. Maybe going to see the in-laws again, fixing that leaky drain that's driving you crazy, doing your tax return or your finances. Ooh. Whatever the weekend holds for you, can you notice the way that as the weekend approaches, it's very easy for the mind to start to pull towards thinking about the future, imagining what's going to happen. And how this pulls you away from the peace and the truth of the present moment into imagining. This pull of the mind into the future can be very subtle or very strong. And of course, it's strongly encouraged by all the marketing and advertising that we're bombarded with these days. Just think how amazing it would be if you came to our restaurant or our venue. Just think how much fun you could have if the list goes on. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with planning or thinking about the future if you're consciously deciding that you want to do so. For example, you set aside some time in your diary to do your taxes or finances or some household chores. But often this isn't a conscious decision. Often it's just the incessant chatter of the mind doing what it does, producing thoughts, thinking of something and then thinking of something else off the back of that, and so the cycle goes on. So part of our practice is to decide when we want to follow those thoughts, because they're helpful, maybe brainstorming how to do a project at work, and when we choose not to follow those thoughts, because we've decided to have some quiet time for ourselves, or because the thoughts are unhelpful, or are a meaningless distraction from what we're doing, or because we've decided to use our time to focus on the present moment instead, like we have now, when we've chosen to take some time to look after ourselves. Thich Nhat Hanh put it nicely when he talked about washing up. If, whilst washing the dishes, we think only of the cup of tea that awaits us, thus hurrying to get the dishes out of the way as if they were a nuisance, then we are not washing the dishes to wash the dishes. What's more, we're not alive during the time we are washing the dishes. In fact, we're completely incapable of realizing the miracle of life while we stand there at the sink. And if we can't wash the dishes, the chances are we won't be able to drink our tea either. Whilst drinking a cup of tea, we'll only be thinking of other things, barely aware of the cup in our hands. And thus we can be constantly sucked away into the future and incapable of actually living each moment of life. So this being pulled away into the imaginary world of the future, this is the risk of TGIF Friday. The excitement is fine, the potential is fine, but there is also a risk with it, that we're not truly living this moment, and that we are subconsciously training ourselves and getting into the habit of always thinking ahead. So that maybe when we get to the actual activity this weekend, with our date or the kids or out in nature, or even with the in-laws, we won't be truly present for that either. So today we're going to have a little go at using this tendency to practice re-anchoring into our bodies in the present moment in some scenarios that we're going to go play through. So take a moment, settle, get comfortable. You can either close your eyes or lower your gaze and just find that posture that allows you to be comfortable but alert. And gently in your own time, settle back down to the anchor that you prefer. Maybe the breath, maybe the body, maybe a mixture of both with your hand on your chest. And now that you've settled into the present moment, Then on to the anchor. I'm going to positively invite you to bring to mind something you're planning to do this weekend. Just let your mind go and imagine it. You will be there. What will you be feeling? What happens? And see if you can notice this movie playing out in your mind. And now I'm going to invite you to let go of the mind movie and to bring your attention back to the anchor. So if you're on the breath, just focusing on the breath coming in through the nose and down, filling your chest, and passing back out again. Arising and passing. Arising its own time and passing in its natural rhythm. And now that you've stabilized back into the present moment, did you notice how, because we're doing this together, it's actually not so difficult to notice the mind movies? Your practice of anchoring in the present is strong enough that in this situation you can see the mind moving as we consciously go into it. But sometimes it's not so easy to notice it throughout a busy day. And that could be one of the benefits of a regular practice, to have that ability to spot the movie and then choose whether to go with it or maybe to drop back out of it into the present moment. So now I'm going to ask you to drop back into the movie you were just thinking about. Try to imagine it again, even if it feels less strong because of what I've just said. And now sense what it feels like in this mind movie if you're not present in this imaginary moment, but are lost in thought about what is going to happen at some future event, maybe next week at work or something like that. So if your movie was walking your dog in nature, you might imagine your dog looking up at you eagerly, but you're lost in thought, not responding. See if you can notice how the dog feels about that when you're not present. Or if your movie was playing in the park with your kids, or on a date or with some friends. Just momentarily feeling how they feel if you're not really listening, not really there, but lost in thought about next week's plans. Just briefly, just feel into that frustration, that lack of connection, and suddenly the movie is not so sweet. And then there's no need to dwell on it too long, so now just drop back into the anchor and what's actually happening in the here and now. The breath arising and the breath passing in its own time. Or the feet on the floor supporting you. Or your hand on your belly or your chest. Just feeling your body naturally living, naturally breathing in the present moment. And if you notice that you've gone back into thoughts or back into the movie, just giving a little inner smile that you noticed it, and coming back to the anchor. And back again. Feet on the floor. Stability of the chair under you. Each breath coming and going in its own time. And if your thoughts or feelings start to lead you into that mind movie or another one, just noticing it, and a little inner smile and returning. Because that's the purpose of the practice. There's nothing wrong with these movies. That's how life works. That's what the mind does. The mind produces thoughts like the saliva glands produce saliva. But we have a choice whether to follow them or whether to decide that just right now we prefer to stay with what's happening. Put our attention back into our preferred anchor. consciously staying with the peace and the tranquility of the present moment. No need for the highs or lows of those imaginary mind movies. Just the reality of what's happening now. And now. And as your attention is stabilized, and as you're noticing more and more things, see if you can notice now or at one of your practices in the future how the mind movie is often accompanied by an inner narrative about yourself. Very often, the beginnings of the mind movie are very simple and in their own time pass quite quickly. But what can make the movie sticky is some kind of internal narrative. I'm not dealing with this right. It shouldn't be this way. I'm not good enough. All these additional thoughts that layer over the original thought or the original impetus and start to build a storyline around it. See if you can notice those, because those are all part of the same mind movie. So if they arise, which is part of our human nature, see if you can give an inner smile at them too, and let them go as well. They're no more real than the mind movie, simply a part of it. No need to follow them. Just come back to the anchor, back to reality, back to the perfection of who you are right now. And using the here and now and your anchor to stabilize you as a source of refuge if the mind starts to take over with some silly mind movie. To just let it go and come back. Breath arising, breath passing. Chest or belly moving. Feet on the floor. Maybe scrunching your toes. Sound arising. Maybe a passing car or some bird song. And the sound passes. Just allowing everything to arise and then pass. Watching it, noticing it, but no need to hold on to it. and noticing that lightness of life when you can let go and just be with what is. Whatever it is, arising and passing. Arising and passing. And as we come towards the end of the practice, just in your own time, having a little stretch still with your eyes closed or your gaze lowered, and then gently opening your eyes when you're ready to do so. So, in a moment, we'll open the floor and see if anyone has any observations or comments or experiences they want to share. Just before they do so, I'd like to set an intention for the sharing, which is that it will help everyone to wake up to the peace and the well-being that are our natural birthright as human beings. And I'll also just stop recording now.